Planning Commission meeting for North St. Paul on May the 2nd. Calling the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Staff, can you do roll call?
Commissioner Kane Burback. Here. Commissioner Muick.
Here.
Commissioner Weiss.
Here.
Commissioner Gadboy.
Here.
Commissioner Rothi.
Here.
Commissioner Alvarez.
Here.
Chair Blees.
Here.
And also present is Chris Cherney, Planning Commission Secretary, and myself, Community Development Director, Brandy Howe.
Did you say City Council Liaison?
Oh, sorry.
Missed it.
City Council Liaison Jason Nordby.
I thought maybe I missed it. Wouldn't be the first time I missed something. That being the case, does anyone have any comments on the agenda? Or can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as written?
Make a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt from Commissioner Rothi. Second?
Second.
Competition. Second from Commissioner Muick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? We have an agenda. Approval of minutes from April 4th. Any comments?
Looks good to me.
Trying to remember if there was something.
I'll move to adopt.
Motion to adopt, approve meeting minutes from
To approve, I should.
April 4th from Commissioner Muick. Is there a second?
Yes.
Second from
Mr. Rathi.
Commissioner Rothi. Just want to make sure I'm hearing the right voice. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Meeting minutes. Okay. The meeting is open to the public, so if there's anyone from the public that has comments that they would like to make that are regarding items not on the agenda, this is not the public hearing, this is just open meeting. So if there's something not on the agenda that someone is here to speak on, you are welcome to do so at this time and come up to the podium. Looks like, no. No one on Zoom, I assume? Okay. So we will address the two public hearing items that are on the agenda separately, so. But the meeting, we always have open to the public time. So that being the case, we are to item 6 on the agenda, which is public hearings. The first of which is item A, the amendment to the zoning ordinance regarding fences. And staff does not have a specific report on that tonight, so. That being the case, I will open a public hearing to discuss fences at 6:34. If anyone would like to speak regarding the fence ordinance, you are welcome to do so. Introduce yourself, give your address and your name. That would be terrific. We did get some public comments. I'm trying to find specifically. We received one comment which had to do with some, what is essentially a retaining wall, which is not something that we will address relative to the fence ordinance, but I do appreciate that comment coming.
Yeah.
I think it's a legitimate concern, and I think it's just not a fence ordinance issue. So we would like to address that at a future time, not related to the fence ordinance. We did get some other public comment about various aspects of the fence ordinance as proposed. There were a couple of things I personally thought deserve some additional discussion. But I will wait and see, is there anyone else here that has any comment? You are welcome.
John Schmall, 2750 Chisholm Avenue. I kind of taken an oath never to get involved in anything to do with the ordinances because I'd rather hit myself in the head with a hammer than to try to understand anything about ordinances. But I'll give it a try. The chair just said something about we're not going to discuss walls, but here it says fence. Any partition, structure, wall, or gate erected, so. And then there's the word screen that's being used. So I would assume you'll deal with walls later on and screens later on, if in fact they are not included in what we're talking about this evening.
In response, that I would differentiate a wall from a retaining wall.
Wow, okay.
That's a wall being the way it was described to me, air on both sides, basically, because a retaining wall is, we're dealing with a different component with a retaining wall. And in fact, I was speaking with staff about making sure that that is in fact addressed in the ordinance, but it's in a different place in the ordinance.
And will be dealt with in
We'll
some
deal with that
future
in a
day.
different matter, yeah.
All right. Anyway, well, the attachment to the notification was 5 pages long, and I have some comments on some of the items. And number one is that there is no, the owner shall be responsible for properly locating all property lines before construction of any fence. I have experience with Wisconsin in the county of Bayfield. You don't do anything without a survey. You don't get to square one. Can't do it. You just, that's the way it is. Here, it's Katie, bar the door, do anything you want to. And later on, there is a note about the connection of one fence to another fence, and you need a written agreement by the person with the fence that is going to have his fence attached to by some method. And there you have to have a written agreement, and it has to be filed with the permit. So I can't see why you don't have a written agreement when you put up a fence that the adjoining property owner, the adjacent property, doesn't have to go through at least that, if you're not going to require a survey, that the adjoining property owner would say, I agree where the fence is going to be, no problem. Would be a wonderful thing to keep peace. Something that just doesn't get, I live on Chisholm. When they were going to do the capital improvement plan of 3 years ago that didn't happen, and as might happen another 2 years from now, the WSB came in, and one of the things they were looking for were survey stakes, pins, if you want to refer to them as pins. And all of Chisholm, if you've been on Chisholm, it goes from Raddatz to Raddatz. There were two pins found on my property. There are no pins, and there are fences all over the place, and God only knows where they are presently located, if they're right or not. But I'm making a suggestion that you have an agreement signed by an adjacent property owner that says, yeah, if you're not going to require the $3,000-4,000 for a survey, just at least do that. I guess you could say if there's bad feelings between the property owners, over my dead body you'll get me to agree. So there's the other side of the coin. In this presentation, I don't have a color printer, but is this going to be the diagram, is this going to be in the code or this picture? Because it'll be the first time there's ever been a picture in the code. And I have a question about it, since again, I don't have a color printer, and if you have the ability to look at it, but there's a dotted line that goes all four sides, and the color one goes around, which is somewhere between the side property line, the front property line, and the rear property line. Was that to indicate anything?
I believe that is to indicate setback requirement.
A fence has a setback?
No,
That's the
the
property
building, the
setback.
building setback. Building setback.
Building setback. I think the
Building
3 minutes has been passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that means, or that has nothing to do with fences, it just happens to do with a description or a diagram that has to do with property setback.
It's understood by staff what that line is meant to be.
But by the stupid idiot that lives on Chisholm,
The 3 minutes has been passed.
well, there was no notification. How can I go through comments in 3 minutes? Effective date of this chapter. That means when it goes through the council, that will be the effective date? Is that a good description of effective date?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so it's Katie bar the door until that time. People could be doing things until that effective date, because everything that you get in before the effective date is grandfathered.
There is an ordinance right now in place for fences.
Yes, whatever it is.
Yes.
But these new changes are what you term the effective date. Nothing that exists at this time is going to be grandfathered in if it is in violation of the present code.
Anything that would get submitted now would have to follow the present code, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
But if what exists now is in violation of the present code, that would not be covered. It would be prove it or something to that effect. It would not be, if it's not covered by the statements in this, in the ordinances that you've changed, and it exists as a non-conforming use now,
Yes.
it's not going to give credibility to that non-conforming use.
No,
No.
it'll still be considered, yeah, non-conforming.
There's something here about day nurseries and day nursery schools. Later on, there's a statement or a description of, helping out a description of something that is a commercial. Just says commercial, that the word commercial applies to this particular item. Are day nurseries and nursery schools commercial, or are they something else? And it's talking about space per pupil, whatever. They're talking about fences. And it should be adequately fenced. So I say, is there a minimum height to be adequately fenced?
Specifically for daycare?
Well, for day nurseries and nursery schools, and will they have to be commercial day nurseries and nursery schools? Or can they be someone who has a daycare. There are licensed daycares in this city. So would that apply to this? Because you're saying, or you might be saying that this is commercial. I don't know. And again, they're talking about using the provisions of 154.010, that would say that the fence could be 7 feet high, but there's nothing that says that in the code that a fence for a nursery should be X number of feet high. I would think that you would do that, but anyway. And again, outdoor portion of animal boarding facility, talk again that the provisions of 154 apply, and specifically that it's can be 7 feet high. Is there a minimum height? Or is there even a need or a requirement for a fence for animal boarding facility, kennel, shelter, daycare, grooming? And this is where the commercial shows up. At the end of that item, commercial. So tell us which one is a commercial in any of these. It's nice that we have an item that covers automobile sales and rental. I don't think we have any, but if they ever have one, we're ready for them. We have a situation here about a fence, Section 7, fence, if the property abuts a residential use, a fence that is at least 90% opaque. Is there an opacity tester? You go like this, click, and you go, damn, 85%, missed it. How do you determine 90% opacity? And if you can't, why have it in the code?
Surface area of the fence. So open versus not open. You can.
No, see-through.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how do you determine that?
You
Opacity.
add up the areas that are open, add up the areas that are not
It
open.
has nothing to do with the fence itself, whether you can see through it. Figure that out. That's, you guys have got the brains behind this. Related to a car wash. Is this adjacent to a residential area? Are these things that you say here, and again, it's screening, you bring up screening, but screening isn't a part of this. Adjacent, is this item cover a car wash that is adjacent to a residential area or not? And if you don't say adjacent to a residential area, are you saying, I don't know, what are you saying? Because other items deal with the statement adjacent to a residential area where a fence is required. It says it specifically. There's no mention of this in the car wash area. And just as a note for this, our friends at the new area, the gas station that's taking over the world, it says here, vacuuming facilities shall not be located along public streets and shall be completely screened from, it's Quick Trip, completely screened from public streets and adjacent property. Really? Do we need that? And you have a violator right now. It's called Quick Trip. You can see their vacuums from McKnight. Again, you know, who cares? But why have a rule that you're not going to enforce? And if the property, I made a note here.
Just 1 second, John. Was that in the old code? I don't remember that being in the old code. Was it in the old code? Okay.
So they
Right.
they're in violation. I'll be darned. Quick Trip is in violation. Again, there is, if the property abuts under daycare center or day nursery, again, is this commercial? Or is it someone who has a daycare in their home? Will it apply? Or does it apply to, I'm not saying commercial, will it apply to all daycare? People doing it in their home or people doing, or, I don't know. I don't have children, so I don't know what the name of the commercial one that's the biggest one in the world. And again, there is no minimum height. You could have it 7 feet high, but there's no minimum height. So maybe you don't care if it's only an inch high. That's all I have.
Thanks, John. I had one question to John's first comment about the survey. Am I correct that maybe it's not worded exactly as clearly as maybe we'd like it, but I thought a survey is required?
It's not presently required.
Okay.
It would be expensive to
Yeah.
impose that on residents, so it is a policy decision that staff would support it either way. Staff would appreciate having a survey. It does make it a lot easier on us. But in order to be a little bit more user-friendly to the residents, if we can determine to the best of our ability with the applicant that they're going to be within the property boundaries, then we will approve a permit.
Okay. So I apologize. I was mistaken about that.
Are there any other public comments on the fence ordinance? If not, I will close the public hearing at 6:52. Questions or concerns or further discussion? There was some other comments having to do with, there was in fact another comment having to do with locating property lines. Trying to find it. Suggesting that the owner visibly mark property pins prior to the construction. I think that is much less an issue if you're putting a fence across the middle of your property. But if erecting a fence at or near a property line, it does start to become an issue. So then it's a matter of, does that get included or not included? Right now, it's not included, but I think there could be language addressing that isn't necessarily a registered land survey, but that property corners are identified. That's just, I guess it's a question of, is there something short of a full-blown registered land survey that if that pin is there, that's great. If that pin is not there, how can it get identified other than a survey? Is there an alternative? Because you were saying that there was, part of it was a cost issue.
Yeah, I think that would be beneficial to have those located, but it would have to be depicted on a site plan somehow.
Yeah,
So the dimensions would have to match with what, GIS data that we have available.
yeah. Something comparable to, the kinds of things that are required if you're selling your house.
I don't know that we
which
need to
are
have
not
that.
necessarily a registered land survey, it's just a plot plan generally.
Sure. This is the kind of stuff that Chris is already working with the owners on, so I don't know that it needs to be codified in terms of,
Yeah.
it's a policy decision by you guys.
Yeah, that it's being handled by staff,
Yep.
basically.
It does bring up a thought to me, though, too. Does it make sense to maybe require that the property owner have some sort of proof that they've had the property checked by the utility services? I always forget what it's called up here. In other states, it's called misdig, but, there's a different word for it up here. But I'm just thinking, there's a possibility that a fence post driven into the wrong place could, impact on a sewer line or,
So go for one, right?
yeah.
Well, that's part
Go
of,
for one.
that's part of the permitting process.
Is it part of the permitting process? Okay.
Yeah.
Staff has
I
to,
wasn't positive. so-
we notify the applicants when they pull a permit that they do have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I understood the comment. There was a question in here about farm fence, and I'm not sure that I understood that comment. Brandy, did you read that?
Item number 2.
Item number 2 in the comments.
I'm not sure what the question is.
Well,
It seems like it's more of a statement.
yeah.
The section on, I think she's referring to the shoreline zoning ordinance.
There's something different in the shoreline overlay district?
I don't recall. It looks like there may be. I'd have to compare it with with the proposed zoning. So if there is a farm fence requirement in the shoreline zoning ordinance section of the zoning ordinance, we haven't amended it. It's not up for discussion tonight.
Okay.
I don't think we have any issues with the vision triangle, because I think that's addressed a couple of different ways. And do we not have we don't have a requirement for the written agreement with the neighbor if we're connecting to a neighbor's fence?
We do. We do, yeah, that
I
made
thought
it
we
in
did.
there.
Okay. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. I appreciate the comment about the car wash, because I thought the car wash related to adjacent residential property, and it doesn't specifically say that, but I'm wondering if that's somewhere else.
I think that was the intent.
That was the intent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the commercial screening components, I think that was the general intent all along, was for adjacent residential properties. But I wondered if that was addressed generally in a place I didn't see it.
It's more vague. It just says along public streets.
I think maybe what you're referring to, Patrick, is the section on height under the non-residential fences where we added language that you can exceed the 7-foot requirement if the intent is to be a screen where it's adjacent to residential uses. So I think that the lack of a language for the residential uses under the car wash is just something that we didn't pick up on before.
Yeah, I think that was the intent. Adjacent, not necessarily all adjacent property in public streets, but adjacent residential was, I think, the intent. So that's in section 8.
I do have a question about Section 4 and 9 are both relating to daycare and day nurseries. So I'm just wondering, would it make more sense to rearrange things so that they're either combined or adjacent to each other?
I don't understand your question.
Section 4 is related to day nurseries and nursery schools, and Section 8's related, or Section 9 is related to daycare, day nursery.
Right.
Question is, should those be combined is the question.
Possibly. That would entail a much bigger rewrite of the ordinance that we were working towards. So what we are dealing with in this ordinance is any language related to fences. We were just cleaning it up so that they were all connecting to the fence ordinance. So if we're going to change the uses, I think that's a different discussion for
Okay.
the future.
All right,
Yeah, okay.
it makes sense. Well,
Essentially, that information is elsewhere.
Right.
So. Okay.
thank you.
So, are there, I guess the question is, are there additional changes that we need to make?
Should we clarify the part of the car wash to not just say road use, but adjacent to residential? Mm-hmm. Because that was the intent. It just wasn't clarified well.
I think it was.
I do have one other question, and that is Section 6 about relating to automobile sales and rental. We're saying that the solid fence or wall or hedge, 7 feet in height, but yet we say 10 feet in height on other commercial activities. So, is that something that needs to be changed?
Is Section 6 of 7 foot a minimum, but the maximum could be 10? Is that the clarification for that?
Possibly.
I think so.
Okay. So while we don't have a minimum for day nurseries, we do have a minimum for the automobile sales and rentals. That,
Like I said, I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
because, if we're saying the maximum is 7 foot, but we're saying other commercial activities is 10, that,
right?
I mean, it does say, for nurseries, it does say adequately fenced. So you would assume that would be fencing that would keep children in. So
Yeah.
And there's other licensing components that exist that would regulate daycare's
Or daycares,
minimums,
If they're licensed.
Yeah.
There are minimums.
which they should be.
That being the case, I think the only thing that came from that, from this discussion that would be a revision would be to clarify the car wash being screened from adjacent residential.
I think that would be more clear.
I think that's what the intent was originally. That would be the only change that I would see. Other than that, I mean, unless there's different perception, I would ask for a motion maybe with that adjustment.
So last question before we get into a motion. Is what about the vacuuming piece on the car wash, or on the service station piece? Talking about the vacuuming on the fence, preventing it from being seen from a city street?
I think we could include that with the being screened from residential properties.
Perfect.
Because I don't see a problem with it.
Right.
being Seen from a
Right.
commercial street.
Yeah, I think that's what we're.
Perfect.
I think that's the idea.
Yep, as long as we're good with that, sure.
Okay.
Can I ask for a clarification on the proposed change? When you're saying adjacent, would you consider that to be adjacent across the street as well?
Well, it generally wouldn't mean that. It generally would mean adjacent,
Directly adjacent.
shared property line,
And I'm just
opposed
not,
to across a right-of-way.
I just don't know what adjacent means
Yeah.
more than,
I think that's generally the perception of adjacent property.
For clarification, would you think that the language that is underlined under section 9, if we were to take that and add it to the car wash section, would that achieve what you're looking for?
I think it would.
Yeah.
Property abuts a residential use.
So if we put that sentence after that first sentence,
Yes.
okay.
I think, though, we're still leaving that last sentence open, aren't we, to completely screen from public streets? We're saying that that's not necessary under certain circumstances, right?
Right. I don't think screening from public streets is necessary for the car wash and vacuuming component.
So the last sentence, instead of saying completely screened from public streets and adjacent, it would be shall.
Adjacent
if-
property.
If, right, the property abuts a residential.
Adjacent residential property, yeah.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I don't want to make sure I have it right.
The last sentence
It
under
should read.
section 8,
Yep, vacuuming facilities shall,
screen from, strike public streets and add the word residential between the word adjacent and property. So we read
it looks like public streets is
Screened-
in that twice.
screened from adjacent residential property,
Okay.
right?
No,
It presently says vacuuming facilities shall not be located along public streets and shall be completely screened from adjacent property,
Screened from adjacent residential property.
residential. Okay.
Should we say something to the effect of that they should be accessible only from within the property itself? Because my reading of that is that we're trying to say that you can't put the vacuum next to a public street so that people would be parking in the public right-of-way to try to vacuum their car.
I would suggest we put a pin in that particular request because that's not dealing with the fence ordinance, but the use instead. And we've had, the public hearing is for the fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So there's a minor modification, language modification in section 8 and in, or just in section 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion with that adjustment.
Sorry, I have one more comment. Sorry.
We can continue.
Don't be sorry.
Back to the survey thing again. The document we have here where somebody's put in the red suggestions, that's from
That's
somebody?
public
in the
comment.
public? Okay. Because I think they say they have a good proposal here where saying we should include language requiring the owner to visibly mark the property pins, which to me is not asking for a survey necessarily, but if the pins aren't there, they have to be, right? So in effect, it is going to require a survey then at that point, or some form of actually locating those pins if they're not there.
not necessarily every property will have an actual pin,
Right,
like a corner pin.
right.
And then again, it's minimally, I think John's accurate, $3,000 to $4,000 extra bill to add on to someone's fence project, which I think our goal was to make it less prohibitive to build and help people improve their property.
This is specifically where it's within a foot of the property line, which would probably be many, but
Yeah.
I guess where my head was, I thought we were requiring a survey, and now that we're not, that just makes me uncomfortable. How are you going to know if it's in the right spot?
We don't. It becomes an issue between two neighbors, a civil issue, if there is a dispute.
Yeah.
So what we approve is a fence on your property that you have confirmed is yours. So it's
it's not locating it, it's just,
Right. It's not necessarily the most desirable approach, but I think it's fairly low risk. I don't think we've had very many issues with neighbors complaining about their neighbor having a fence that is over the property line. I think that's pretty rare if it's ever happened since I've been here.
okay.
But it is something staff would like to have, and not just for fences, for other structures on the site as well. We also don't require site plans unless it's a brand-new residential construction.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Does staff have any way of checking GPS coordinates on the properties? You know, is that a kind of an unofficial way of getting a reasonable, accurate?
We do the best that we can with the dimensions that the applicant provides us, as well as the dimensions of the property on GIS that we have. We don't use the coordinate system, though.
Those are close-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it becomes a situation where it's questionable enough, then we will ask for additional information and press that with the applicant. We don't grant permits to applicants where we don't feel that they're going to be able to successfully meet the requirements.
No, I'm just thinking in terms of, you know, getting reasonably approximate as opposed to actually having to have them go and do a survey.
So what we've included is language that the property owner needs to properly locate the property line, but we haven't said that they need to get a land survey.
Okay.
So it does become incumbent on staff to ensure that correct information is provided.
Right.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Someone have a motion?
I will make that motion to the changes that we were said for section 8, was it? I don't remember.
Section
the
8.
language.
It was Section 8.
Yes.
I'll second.
So it's a motion from Commissioner Gadboy and a second from Commissioner Rothi?
No.
No.
Close enough.
Oh. It's voices. I didn't see faces. I only saw voices. So the second was not from Commissioner Rothi.
Going to show that in the minutes is not.
No, Commissioner Alvarez, sorry. You guys must sound alike. That being the case, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? No, none opposed. Recommending that to council. That being the case, we are to public hearing for Delaware Place, preliminary PUD, correct? I
The
lost
public
track of
hearing.
my agenda.
Yeah, it's for the PUD, the rezoning, and the plat.
Can we have a report from staff?
You bet. So I'll be fairly brief because I tortured you with the length of the staff report. The application is for a preliminary plat, the preliminary PUD, and the rezoning from R1 to R2 at 2329 17th Avenue. The applicant is Andrus Built LLC. The subject property is on 17th Avenue, which is located at the corner of 17th and Delaware Avenue. It's a 2.43 acre parcel that is it's the site of a former church that was demolished in 2009. The city has been the owner of that property since 2010. We had some interest from the applicant around the time that I first started here. And then we had some other interests that came in as well. So we issued an RFP for development proposals to have some criteria to which to select from. The RFP was issued last spring. Council reviewed those development proposals in August and then again in December 2023. At that time, they requested that the Planning Commission take a look at the top 2 of those. At the January 4th Planning Commission meeting, one of the applicants didn't attend that meeting, and so we were left with the top one. And you heard their presentation at that time, and it was recommended by the Planning Commission to move forward with a development contract with Andrus Built at that point. So that is what has happened. They have the City Council has approved a development contract with Andrus Built, and the project at hand now is for 10 townhome units on the site. So I had previously called these twin homes, and as I went and looked at the ordinance and did the thorough review, I realized that I was misnaming them. They're townhomes, and according to our ordinance, but they're basically just twin homes, two unit structures on 2 lots. The 4 of those will be fronting along Delaware Avenue. The remaining 6 will front on 17th Avenue. There will be no additional internal streets. The open space area will be dedicated as stormwater primarily. It will be privately maintained and owned by an HOA. And based on, yep, I've already gotten through that. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the request before you tonight is the planned unit development, and within your staff report, there is a thorough review of the proposal against the eligibility requirements, and staff determined that it did meet the eligibility, and the flexibility that was requested was for the for a couple of the zoning requirements. So it doesn't quite meet the minimum lot width for the R2 district, and it doesn't quite meet the minimum side yard setback for the R2 district. The development is presently zoned single-family, as I had mentioned, and we evaluated the project against the R1 standards and found that it better aligns with the R2 district standards, and the table also illustrates where the flexibility is required. So back to the review of the PUD criteria, we looked at the development standards, architectural standards, landscaping standards, and the overall purpose of the PUD and the objectives of the ordinance. And we found that it aligned with those objectives and criteria with the information that was available. Some of the information pertaining to the PUD was not available yet because that will come through the final PUD and final plating process. But as it stands as a preliminary project, staff believes that it meets those criteria. And likewise, we reviewed the preliminary plat against the subdivision ordinance, and found that it is consistent with Chapter 153, which is the chapter that regulates subdivision of land. And based on our review and on the fact that the project has already been looked at by Planning Commission and City Council, and it's under contract, staff recommends that council approve the preliminary plat, the PUD, and the rezoning for Delaware Place, subject to those conditions that are contained in the resolution. And those conditions are based on the engineering report that is also included in your packet. With that, I will take questions, or we can open it up to the public comment.
I apologize, I was not at the meeting when this was discussed initially, so this may have already been answered, but I assume there's no architectural design yet, right?
I have not received that yet, but I think that there probably is something that the applicant would be able to address if they
I
wanted
think
to
we
come
saw
up.
early conceptual information, but I think it was early. It was not complete designs by any means.
Okay. But it looks as though the idea is there's a driveway in front of each one of these? Is that-
Correct.
Okay.
Small driveway, yes.
And what was mentioned earlier in that meeting in January is that the applicant has been in communication with Ramsey County because that 17th Avenue is a county jurisdiction, and they have preliminary given approval to that, to those driveways.
Okay.
I had only one minor question, and it had to do with the engineering report, and Brandy, you may not know the answer to this. But when I was reading, I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was in the engineering report. It said something about public sanitary and private water and stormwater. And I was trying to, it's not by any means a critical thing. I was just curious about what was the meaning of that. And I can't remember where it was, but I'm pretty sure it was in the engineering report.
What was the meaning of the privately owned?
The privately owned, private water. Because in my mind, private water means they have wells, which I'm sure is not the
Oh,
case.
I think that just means you've got the mains running through
Means
the
there's-
street, and then the private would be the connection to the street.
There's a distribution component internally.
Yeah, it's standard hookups compared to any other city.
I didn't think it was going to be anything unusual, but it was the way it was written. I didn't know if there was an error in the way it was written, or if I was,
I
more
think
likely, it's just my understanding.
Yeah, just engineer versus architect.
Yeah, probably, yes.
They, yeah, everything will be private. I'm sorry, there would be no wells. It will all be on city water.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see where it is.
Is it under engineering requirements?
I see where it is, yeah. I'm not as puzzled when I look at the utility plan. Okay, I have nothing else. Any other questions for Brandy on the staff report at the moment? All right, if not, I will open a public hearing at 7:22 PM. If members of the public would like to speak, please introduce yourself and your address, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Jack Chuckna, and I live at 2714 Chippewa Avenue. I've got a couple of questions in the aspect. The one you said about the R2 or the rear-round, and you said two of the things didn't work, the setbacks or something like that. So how are you going to get around that?
Oh, the PUD allows for flexibility with the setbacks.
Okay?
So what they propose in their document that is the site plan is what their setbacks are for this project.
So can anybody go and do that?
No, only when they have PUD approval.
And who approves the PD? These guys?
These guys make a recommendation to city council, and city council makes that.
Another one is, you said this was all decided more or less back on what date? The 4th of April?
It was,
The 7th of January, or when
it was January 4th that the planning commission made a recommendation to go with that particular developer to work on that site with the city, and the city, later that month, I believe, entered into a contract with the developer.
Okay, so then why did this letter just come out April 14th that I didn't even receive?
The,
Because I ain't within the 350 feet.
the development contract, they can only move forward with that if, so it's contingent on the approval of tonight's, or of this particular process. So they cannot develop the site, even though they have a contract, without the rezoning, without the PUD, and without the plat.
Okay, so
So-
like the last
so-
time that we fought it, when they were gonna put in, what was it, 18 or 16 or 14, and then that guy backed out because there's so much problems, that's all getting washed away and nothing done about it.
I wasn't here for that, so I'm not sure what you mean by washed away.
Ain't that something you should look into?
What do you mean by that? Can
Well,
you
okay.
rephrase that?
Back how many years ago was it that you tried before to do the same thing, but you were gonna put in more housing, more apartments or whatever, more units?
Okay.
And the people got up and said, why are you trying to do this? Shove it down our throats, just kind of like you are now. You mentioned that how it was on the January 4th that yous all decided this, but now this letter don't come out till the 14th of April. It more or less sounds like you've already made your decision of this association or this business is gonna get to do it. I don't think that's right, just sticking it down everybody's throats.
They get to propose. We're not,
It's a proposed,
Yeah.
yes. But, as you said, the way you just more or less slide it under the table. Correct?
not correct.
No, not correct.
No.
You don't believe so?
No.
Why is that?
Why is it?
Yeah.
Because this is your opportunity to speak.
Okay, but I wasn't even notified about it, is what I guess I'm getting at, because I wasn't within the 350 feet.
Right.
So what causes that rule of being, oh, you gotta be within 350 feet?
It's fairly standard, not just for the city of North St. Paul. There's always
It's a statutory requirement.
it's a statutory requirement about notifying properties within a certain distance of the development, the proposed development.
So in other words, with that 350 feet, it don't affect me, is what you're trying to say?
I'm not trying to say that at all.
The public hearing was also noticed in the newspaper.
What newspaper? I get the St. Paul Pioneer Press every day.
The Star Tribune is it's our official city newspaper.
Good evening. My name is James Eng. I live at 2704 Chippewa Avenue North. I'm right on the corner of 19th and Chippewa. Jack there is my neighbor across the street. I received the letter, but he did not. My question, well, as you can see, I'm a construction worker. I'm in the union. So my questions, how wide is the road going in? Is there going to be room if there is, say, an emergency? How many fire trucks can go in? Who's going to do the snow removal? Yes, this year we didn't get snow, I understand. But, you know, most years we get a lot of snow. Okay, Jack and I, we might be, you know, a little farther away than Bob's family. He's right up against the development. So is it right for him to look at all of this going on, first of all? And there's only really a couple ways for Jack and I to get home, so we have to go by this every day. If there's going to be a lot of kids, is there going to be another school bus drop off? How are we going to get by all this when, you know, all this extra stuff is put in the way, so to speak? So those are my questions. I just want people to realize that there is a difference between being on the city council and actually living there. Okay, I'm not going to get mad. I'm just, sir, Mr. Patrick Belize, I believe, would you like this in your backyard? If you lived where Bob lived, would you like this?
Where does Bob live?
Bob lives directly on Chippewa,
Yeah.
so if this is a development, he's right in the middle. So he's right up against the new fencing, new development. So his backyard will be looking at either the townhouses, whatever. I'm just trying to figure out why when we kind of shot this down several years ago, why do we have to go through it again? So,
I would like to clarify the location of the townhomes, the twin homes, really. They're only abutting Delaware at 17th Avenue. There will be nothing behind those property owners on Chippewa.
but still, who's going to take care of the property, like for snowfall? Who's going in to do this? If it's an association,
Where would the snowfall be occurring that needs
I
to
think,
be?
I think
On the
people think,
property.
I think people think that there's a road in the middle, so each of them
Not
have.
a road.
There's no.
There's not a
road
road.
going
There's
in.
no road.
not
No,
in the
there-
No
there-
added road.
It's a very different plan than what was presented in
Let me,
2019.
let me put it back on the screen, I think.
There are
Thank you, Randy.
there are 4 driveways coming from the units onto Delaware Avenue, and there's 6 driveways coming from the units that are facing 17th, onto 17th. There's no internal road.
Yeah.
That's all open land.
Okay.
So the only home that will experience and see the townhomes is the one right on Delaware,
The one, yeah, just to the north,
and then the other one on
and possibly the one
17th.
here, yep.
I'm mistaken, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's all right.
To clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing on the screen here looks like it might be some kind of infrastructure, but really it's just a rerouting of a sewer line.
Can I ask a question? I'm relatively new to this council here, so my understanding is that the developers have all this preliminary work to do, all this preliminary money to put into this, to start getting prepared for this, but it's not decided yet. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, so I know it sounds like everyone thinks this is already done, but it's not. It's not done yet. And so this is the opportunity for the public, right? If I'm understanding this
Correct.
process. This is the first one I've gone through like this. I know that the developers have a lot of money into this, which is kind of not the point, right? Now there's an opportunity for people to come. I will say one thing, having been on other boards, or committees, I should say. So it sounds like, and I understand this, I think about the development that went in for Anchor, okay, on South where I live. And I go by it and there's this house, 2 houses, at this spot where it was always open behind them, and I think, now they've got this big building right behind them. And then I think, when you own your home, do you own the entire view around you? You don't.
No,
None of us do. None of us do. And we'd like to have that view be ours forever, but sometimes there'll be development. And also, when you said, would you like this in your backyard? I don't know that anybody would like it in their backyard, perhaps, because it's change, not because it's bad. Because it's change, and what I think the city's goal, from what I understand, is to also develop more of our city for people to live here. And this has been an open spot, and I think change is hard on a lot of people for what they're used to. But this does seem like this is our opportunity as a city to be able to address this. I don't think it's been done, so I don't think it's been like shoved down anyone's throat that it's done already.
And these aren't multi-story townhomes.
okay.
These are one.
Yeah, like Anchor where it's 3
Yeah.
high and, you
These
know.
are gonna be on the same level as the houses
The
that are in
regular
the
house.
neighborhood. Yeah.
My understanding, it was single story with a full basement, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yep.
All I'm asking is, I used to work at 3M, okay, for several years, normally down at the Cottage Grove plant, so we're right along the river. So any development at 3M, they had to basically make it within guidelines for appearance. So it's not going to, look bad for anybody.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I was going to bring up.
That architectural standard piece is addressed in the next step. So if they get approval for the preliminary PUD, then they would have to come back and get a second approval for the final PUD.
Are we going to get a letter for a second time to come back?
I think final PUD gets a public hearing, doesn't
I'll
it?
have to look, I don't recall.
I don't recall either. Haven't done one for a long time. I don't think I've ever done one sitting in this chair. So,
And then,
usually I'm on the other side of the table.
Let me take,
I'm an architect, so I've done the other piece of this.
and one thing that's in this too is the homeowners agreement, where the homeowners association has to keep up the houses.
Yeah.
So that they don't.
And the rest of the
And
green space
property.
around it and
Yeah,
behind it.
they have to maintain the green
Yep.
space.
So if this was an area being redone,
Yeah.
okay, this is Delaware, and you turn on to Chippewa, I'm kind of right here. Jack back there is across the street from me, but Bob's right here. I mean, he's directly in line with it, so
Yeah. So
we're
six,
just kind of watching out for each other.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's great.
So,
appreciate that.
Yep.
okay, thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
if you would, let me just add, I don't think there is a PUD, I'm sorry, I don't think there's a public hearing requirement. I'm just scanning the ordinance
For a
right now
final?
for the final.
For a final plat? No,
So this
No,
is
not the-
our
probably not a final
time
plat
to
either.
talk.
Yeah.
Well, you're welcome to come back anytime, and so when they do come, they
But if
will.
I'm not going to be notified.
That is a point. But what I wanted to add was this developer has just recently finished a similar project, I think you would say, to the, I think it's called 7th Street Townhomes on the corner, or, sorry, intersection of 7th Street and 6th Street. So those style of units,
By Max.
a little bit. So those are the kind of units that they're going to be putting in this particular location. So that'll give you an idea of what their architectural style will most likely be like.
Okay, I'll check it out, but I just want to thank you for your time. And I'm just trying to help out. Because no matter what, I do come in this way few times every day. And so anything that, these extra driveways, if these units are going to be with kids, children, where's a bus stop going to be? I don't remember if there's street lights there. Any questions like that? So I'm just trying to watch out for everybody. So, once again, thank you for listening to me.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak tonight from the public?
Hi, I'm Monica Chuckna, Jack's wife. You said on Delaware, there's going to be 4 driveways,
yes, ma'am.
and on 17th, there's going to be 6. Now, have you been down Delaware? There's
Yes.
2 houses, the one on the corner has habitual garage sale, and the other one doesn't. Jim and we have trouble butting each other in the driveways. And he's off to us, but it's still almost direct. Now, you put 4 on Delaware and 2 on the other side, how's that gonna work?
That image back up. Every unit will have its own driveway,
Yep,
but I think that it's really looking like,
and there's 4 of them?
well, if you can see on the
Shared,
screen,
so
yeah, it's a
it's a
shared driveway, so
shared
it looks
driveway.
like,
Randy, can you zoom that in a little bit
does
more?
that work a little bit better?
Yeah.
So you see the shaded area here?
That's the driveway.
Yep, so Unit 5 and Unit 6, so they each have their own driveway, so they're not separated. And the width of them, do you recall the width? Is it like 20 feet in total for both of them?
I don't know if that information.
Yeah, maybe 30 feet, so it's not
32
too
and a
much
half.
wider than a standard driveway for the two of
I
them.
understand that, but if you've got one here on Delaware and one up here, and then you put these other ones in there, are we gonna have issues with those wonderful streets they put in for us, that it's not wide enough for all these cars to be trying to turn in and go in and out?
I don't think I can answer the traffic configuration stuff because that would be a city
Was that
engineer.
considered dictating when they want to build these things.
It is, our city engineer reviews the plans that are submitted, the engineering documents that are prepared, and so he provided a thorough report, which is included in the packet, and he didn't mention anything regarding traffic issues with this particular project.
Okay, and then you said there's going to be open space or whatever in the back behind Bob.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, is that just gonna be just a playground, something, just green area for the birds to come and chirp in?
As far as I know, I don't know if they're planning on putting a playground in. If they did, it would be specifically for the use of the residents there. I really doubt it, though.
Is it gonna be family residential?
Would you like to come up and discuss the project?
Most of these are all for seniors, they're single level townhomes. And the people that buy them, and what you was talking about before, our other development is on Cherry Lane off of Seventh Street. They're all one level, full basements. And everybody that has bought one there, the youngest is probably 55. There's a couple people that are still working, the rest are retired. They're usually people from nursing home that want to stay in the community, but they can't take care of the yards no more. So that's what's gonna happen here, is we have an association, and they pay, and we have people that plow the driveways and take care of their yards, and same with that open space back there. There won't be a playground or anything. Our plans right now are to leave it for the people, we'll cut the grass, whatever, but they might put flower gardens back there or regular gardens. Other than that, there probably won't be any equipment or anything, because there won't be any kids. These are all gonna be
Will there be access back to that opening?
just for these people, just for the association.
Okay.
I know
Now,
we've talked with the city about letting the city have it, but the city doesn't want it as a park, because they have more parks that are empty now. And it'd be better for us to maintain it with the association.
okay, and then are you the company that wants to build it?
Yes.
Okay, how long are you gonna hold on to that? Because that was one of the considerations the last time when they were going to put this 17 units or whatever in the last time. They were gonna hold it for 5 years and then they were gonna put it up for sale. And it was,
These are all individually sold right off the bat. We build them and sell them as we go.
so the people own them, like the ones across from St. Pete's Church.
Right, you own them, you bet.
All right.
Yep.
That's me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My son has a townhouse over in Eden Prairie. But he is a part of an association also. So when he's had snow in the past, the association has never showed up for 3 to 5 days. He is not supposed to go out and do this work himself. And I'm just trying to figure out about the association, because if it snows, you gotta get out there and do it.
Yeah, it sounds like they need somebody else to run their association, they need to hire different snowblowers. Typically, like the ones we have on Gary Lane, they send out an email, they're there right as soon as it snows and they get it done. Because then people are older and they don't wanna shovel their driveways.
Yes, I'm just trying to watch out for the people, you know, so.
Are these designated senior housing?
No, anybody can buy,
So not just
they're
senior?
2 bedrooms on the main level. They're kind of set up for seniors. I mean, a family typically doesn't buy because there's not enough aluminum for a family, just for probably 2 people. Well, they'll be probably, they're close to 1,400 square feet. Just a main one.
Our house is 11 and we had 3 kids in there.
Well, I'm just going by all the other times I built these. That's the
My question, you said if 4 seniors, but anyone can buy them?
anybody can buy it.
Okay, so, I mean, you bring the seniors in, anybody can buy it, so it's kind of, it's not really clear to me, is what you're trying to say. I mean, are they duplexes, or are they townhomes, are they
It's
single?
being taken like 2 Rambler buildings and putting them together.
So they're like, they're,
They're twin homes.
so they're twin homes, they're
Yeah,
duplexes.
they have dividing, they're joined by.
Anyone can buy them, so it could be a
Anyone can
senior,
buy
or it
them.
could be just a family?
It could be a family, sure, could be, but it's in our experience, that never happens.
It's not specifically an over 50.
It's not a 55-plus development,
Yeah.
no.
Or like a single woman a lot of times will buy one. That's typically what buys.
What's the valuation?
They'll be probably, the ones on Kerry Lane are about 500,000, and these will probably be,
Really?
Yeah.
It'll be 500,000?
they'll probably, well, you can't build anything for less than 4, so I'm sure it'll be at least 400,000.
See, I just lost my wife 2 months ago, and now my one son still lives with me, but, the same thing, I just wanted to ask.
Now, can people purchase these and lease them out to other people then as well? Is this something that companies can come in and purchase?
We will not sell them to companies, they'll be individual homeowners will buy these.
Are there any other,
Pardon?
Is there gonna be a fence?
No fence.
are there any other public comments, or can we close the public hearing? In that case, I will close the public hearing officially at 7:45. Commissioners, questions, concerns, additional comments?
Well, I think you should leave it open a little longer in case there is other comments.
Well, that's why I said, are there any other comments? Okay, well,
I get into the comments, but someone else might still want to. I didn't realize they were single story. We haven't actually had it explained to us because it's just a letter. And the letter came without even a time that this meeting was to be. They told us there would be a meeting, but it didn't give a time. So we had to call today and find out what time it was.
so,
So could there be maybe another explanation? Maybe the owner could, if they're single story, you said they're 1,400 square feet?
Right, they're single-story units with full basements, they're just like a Rambler,
Mm-hmm, okay.
Rambler house. Except they've got 2 together, so it's a twin.
Okay. And is
So
the
they're about
entrance and
1,400
exit
square
all
feet.
on the front and back? Or
Pardon?
Is the entrance and exit on the front and back? Or is
It'd be
that-
just like the houses now, the ones on 17th, they're all facing 17th, just like the rest of the houses. And then you turn a corner in Delaware and they face Delaware. So, and then they'll have, in the back, they'll have decks out the back, just like a normal house.
Mhm, okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that picture, it showed kind of looked like a road, but you say that there's not a road there.
That's
What
where
was
the
that?
sewer and water is behind all them homes. It's kind of different, all them existing homes. Usually the sewer and water's in the road. But for some reason, it's behind the houses. I don't know how that ever came about years ago. So that's what it is we're continuing that line
Okay.
through to Delaware. And then they tie into that.
And then that area that's kind of crosshatched, is that where
That's a
water,
pond.
is that a water
That's
pond?
Water pond, right. And it probably won't ever have much water in it. They're deciding not to, but typically when you do the development, we have to keep all the water on the site. So it all drains to that pond, is what it does. And then there's an overflow that'll drain out into, 17th for that.
So what are you
storage.
calling that area behind the pond?
It's just open space, that's all.
Who
That's what
who
they
will
call it.
take care of that?
Then the association will take care of that. That's taking care of the grass cutting already around the units.
Yeah.
They'll take care of that too right away.
Okay,
So it'll always be taken care of.
yeah, okay. Well, we live on our Second Street, which is, we're at the end of your lot.
Oh,
Our
okay.
houses, our
Sure.
backyard space. And like you said, it's gonna be a change. I know there's, the other development, quite a few, I think we went to different meetings about it. And it was a deal where they were talking about fire engines and everything. This doesn't sound like there'd be any.
Because there's no
It's-
road.
Yeah,
So the
right,
roads are already
right.
there, yeah, so we don't have to worry about that. They can get by.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I was wondering, the thing I was wondering about, is there gonna be a lot of headlights in my window, in my back window, which is my.
No,
kitchen,
because
or my
their,
living
their
room.
houses are gonna be, they're gonna
Right,
drive
now,
right to
now
the garage.
now that explains some things, because we haven't heard any explanation of what was going in there. So, That sounds like a fairly good deal. But there will be destruction in the whole area. Not destruction, there will be construction stuff. Well, yesterday, for instance, in front of our house, there was a double wide trailer with a flatbed with a big spool on it. And it sat there overnight, but it did go away the next day. But it was, our driveway backed into it, so we had to be careful that you don't hit the truck, things like that. So I realize it'll be all, how long do you imagine these will take to build?
Oh, I'm sure
You
it'll
said
take
you
a year
sell
and a
them
half,
as you-
probably a year and a half or so.
Okay,
yeah.
that's
For
what I'm
once we
thinking.
start them,
Mhm.
do we start one building and we just keep going and sell as we go.
Okay. And you're not gonna advertise it as for seniors, you're just gonna say a 14-foot home
Right,
for
right.
$400,000.
Because we don't want to limit it to us, like I say, there's people in our other development that are probably 55 or so, they still got a few years left before they retire, but they don't have any kids, the kids are all grown up and they're gone, they just don't want to cut the grass.
Yeah,
Do any of that.
yeah, I know what that's like.
Yeah, right.
How is that land assessed
What do you mean?
for the homeowner? Do they get a portion of?
They're actually, will each have an individual lot. It's right down the middle of the building. So they have their own lot, so it's assessed just like a regular house. This is their address, just like your house, that's what it's assessed for by the value. So,
So are the yards kind of combined,
no, their yards are separate, but the association takes care of them. So you own it, but the association takes care of it, plus there's rules along with it. That say, hey, you can't park a motorhome in your driveway, because your neighbor doesn't want to look at it, so that's part of the rules.
You can't take
It's
a
all in
rug
the
outside
association.
and with your rug because, anything like that. You can't paint. If there's a big icicle, you can't take care of it. It might take 5 days and umpteen trips, so you trip over it or slip.
Yeah, most of these people take care of their own stuff or wait for the association.
Well, like I said, my son cannot take care of that, so then he's jeopardizes himself, hip, leg, whatever, because the association does not come by in time.
Yeah, well, that's his association.
Yeah.
I
own
the house and entirely.
And the homeowners association took care of things and they were very good. So it depends on the homeowners association.
Exactly.
Sounds like your son's got a bad one.
Yeah.
But that's not gonna say that this one has a bad one.
I understand.
Is there a
Thank you.
common
Okay.
wall?
There is a common wall on these, and what we do is we build it out of concrete too, so that they're soundproof, so it's nice, you don't hear your neighbor. They're not cheap to build, so. And we will build, every one of these units will be a different color. So it'll be just like a regular housing development. They're not gonna look like, oh, here's 10 of them, they're all the same, you can tell that. They'll all be a different color, different stone on the front. So it's gonna look like, houses, except there's two together.
Is the zoning
all done? Is the zoning complete?
The zoning will have to be.
Zoning is part of tonight's discussion.
Council.
There are 3 items on tonight's agenda. One is rezoning from R1 to R2, so it increases the density a little bit, which staff report had made comment about more applicable for this, and also complying with what the comprehensive plan for the city is. And then so the rezoning is one thing, preliminary plat is another, which is essentially subdividing the property into multiple lots. And then the third item on tonight's agenda is the planned unit development, which has to do with establishing the setbacks and the lot sizes, et cetera, et cetera. They're very related, but they are technically 3 different things on tonight's agenda, all of which, any action we take is not final decision-making. The action we take is to make a recommendation to the city council.
And to add to that, the city council, if this moves forward tonight, would be considering it at their meeting on Tuesday, the 7th, at 6:30.
Well, thank you for explaining that to us. Sir, we appreciate it, thank you.
You bet.
With that, are there any other commissioner questions, discussion items?
I think, and Brandy, it just, I think pointed that out too, I think that this time right here, right now, was super helpful. I think that, and I don't remember, his friend, James? Is that his name? Yeah, I think that, and again, I'm new, I haven't done one of these before. Is there a possibility that we set up a time where people from the city can come and talk directly like this to him and ask some direct questions? Because I think this is the issue. The snowplow thing, that's 3 levels down the road. The real question is, it sounds like you feel you weren't listened to, it was shoved down your throat, you dealt with something similar before and it reminds you of this, but I think it's a little different. I wasn't there for the other one, but to be able to have what you want to say heard, I think would be huge. And I think your direct answers are fantastic. Is there a possibility to do that for future ones of these?
Yeah, that's something that we can coordinate with
Could we
staff.
coordinate that?
Yeah,
And
and just do it, informal meeting,
something where, yeah, you could just ask.
community discussion.
Yeah.
Open house?
Would that be helpful?
Well, I think if he had made a presentation when this started,
So,
these questions would have been answered.
yep. And so here's the thing, though. There is a process that the city has, so we're going through those steps, and this is the next step, and I think it feels to people that they should have been involved further upstream of that. And so maybe that needs to be an adjustment at the city procedural level. So I think we need to pay attention to that for the future.
I would concur with that. I think this activity tonight, the public hearing, was more of a neighborhood-style meeting, which could happen and should happen for future PUDs, and I'm looking at the people that will be here in the future to carry that out. Just so that you're aware, this is the first time that you've been hearing about this, but this particular project has been in the works for over a year now. And so the applicant has done several presentations to both this body and the city council. So it's not the first time that it's been heard, so we apologize that it wasn't part of the presentation tonight.
If that's true, then why did nobody know about it
Well,
at that time? Should we not be notified that this is what might be pending or that we're thinking about this?
that kind of information is available. It's available online at the city website. It's available many times. There's information in the city newsletter. I mean, there are other sources to get the information other than the formal notice that goes to the people within 350 feet. But you, and anyone in the city is welcome to come to this meeting, to the council meeting, to the council workshop. Anyone is available to come and be at those meetings and hear what is said. And there are opportunities to get together but I think the point made by Commissioner Alvarez is a very good point. To formalize it from the standpoint of making it a more of a social interaction so that you can ask the questions of the proposer and get some answers back and forth. It's difficult to do that in a formal meeting. It's a lot easier to do it in an informal setting. So that's something that we have to take into consideration for the future.
And help me clarify too. If I'm understanding this correctly, you've put a lot of money into this so far, but this isn't settled, right?
Correct.
So they could get a no. So is that clear? Like, they could still be told no, even though they put, and I'm a contractor, I know the tens of thousands of dollars they put into this stuff, they could still be told no. So it's not done, if I'm understanding it correct, right?
Right.
Okay. So just to be clear, it's not a done thing, but there's a procedure for it, and this is how it normally is set
It's
up.
like phase 2 out of 3.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Other comments or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to make recommendation to the city council based on the staff report, the conditions on the engineering report. Most of the conditions on the engineering report just have to do with, shall we say, finishing the engineering design. So there's not a whole lot there that would be a big surprise.
I'll make the motion.
Motion from
Muick.
Commissioner Muick. Second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Alvarez. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. This will go to the council next week? Next week. Okay. I'm scrolling through to see if there was anything else. Never did find that thing. I had a question about the engineering report, but I think you adequately answered that for me. We are on item 7 on our agenda, which is reports. Anything from you, Brandy? Well, let's start with our council liaison.
Again, I would just like to thank you for the hard work and all the due diligence you guys are doing. In my opinion, you guys are a model for a planning commission, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
None from me.
Commissioner King Burbeck, no?
Nope.
Ewing?
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Wise?
I would just like to thank Brandy and wish you well
Thanks.
in your next adventure. But you've done so much good stuff here, and I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of what's been set up. I know Chris can keep carrying it forward, and Chris, thank you for all your help as well too. So good luck
Thank
in your next position.
I'll interrupt because I want to second what our city council liaison said. You guys are the best. You're one of the best planning commissions I've ever worked with, and I really mean that. It's been a pleasure.
I'm really glad we're a full house, too.
Yeah.
Look
me
at this.
too.
Everybody's here that's supposed to be here, which I feel really good about that. I really appreciate everybody in the room doing the job you said you were going to do, which is, sometimes it's hard to do, so. Commissioner Gadboy, any reports from you? Besides the fact you're going to have free stuff at your curb.
Yeah, the garage sales. I'm gonna have free stuff at my curb. There's a new coffee shop in town.
Yes.
In the back of the candy store, and I've been wanting an independent coffee shop in North St. Paul for a long time, so we have one, so go use them, utilize them, so
Yeah.
they stay.
That does raise a quick question. Have we heard anything more about what's going on with the asphalt plant at the edge of town?
I haven't.
Okay. I always forget how you pronounce their name.
Commissioner Rothi, anything from you?
Well, given the number of guests that we had here tonight and your flexibility to be able to allow them to be able to speak and listen says a lot to your leadership. So thank you in that capacity, and thank you for all of them for showing up. It was really great to hear from Andres Construction that they were just open and willing to share.
Yeah.
That says a lot about the community, the organization that we've selected, so that also says a lot. Lastly, Brandy, kudos.
Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Alvarez.
I don't know the procedure to get something recommended, like a meeting where we could sit with I don't know how that happens. 'Cause I'm
I think-
newbie, but however that would be, and that was pretty much Brandy's idea.
I think that you could include something in the ordinance for the PUDs that you either require it or strongly recommend it as part of
Yeah.
maybe as the conceptual plan phase.
And how would you add an earlier notification also to the community? Like,
Well, and it's a
you know
matter of what kind of notification, because I can say there's things on the website, there's things on the newsletter. The newsletter is now electronic.
Yep. Our crowd here, I don't think, was checking the website.
One of the challenges, and I can speak to this because I see it personally with
Yeah.
volunteer activities my wife is involved in.
Yeah.
She interacts with people that never go to a website,
Yep.
never use their email. And she has to communicate with them in some other way, you know,
Yeah.
old style,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it's either going by mail or it's going by phone.
Yeah.
Those are the only two ways that she can communicate with certain people.
That's me.
In her
actually.
group.
I avoid email at all costs.
And so you need to know
Yeah.
those things
Yep.
and have the other, I mean, the newspaper.
But as a municipality, though, with our demographic being, especially in that area, I'm just thinking that maybe there's something
Yeah.
to invite.
I think
more. don't know.
between maybe putting something in the PUD ordinance and maybe it's also a staff awareness thing, that when there's an application made for something, that comes
Yeah.
up in the discussion.
And there-
with the
How
Well-
many feet?
proposer.
310 feet?
Right.
How many people
The
is
applica-
that?
350.
The application was
350, how
the
many houses
trigger
is that?
Yeah.
for that
40?
particular
50
thing.
houses at the most that we'd send a letter
Yeah.
out to?
Well, and there are other ways of getting news out. It's like when I was a transportation planner in Dallas, we had the worst problem getting people to come out to public meetings about bus route changes.
Sure.
But I took the opportunity on my own time to go out and hang a notice on every single bus stop
Sure.
that was being affected, and made sure that the drivers on the routes passing through that neighborhood had flyers to hand out to people. Now, you know, I can't recommend to the city staff that they spend their time doing that,
Right.
but there usually are ways of getting the news out aside from just mail and email. And,
Right.
you know, there are, we just have to look at opportunities.
That reminds me of something that we do in River Falls, or when I worked there, we did, and they're still doing it, because I walked by one just this past week. They put a physical sign in, like a garage sale style sign that has an image of the site and what's proposed, and when is it going to be talked about? And
Yeah.
what is the decision? So that's like, hey, be
Meeting
aware.
date. If you want
Right.
to
Yeah.
say something, here's the date.
Yeah, because just like this group did, you know, one person got the letter and several didn't, but they talked.
Right.
Right.
So,
Because they were outside. And as a final thing, Brandy, it has been great work with you. I appreciate you. I hope your next thing goes well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Chris, you've been paying attention, right, Chris?
Trying.
Okay, just want to double check.
Yeah, big shoes.
Chris, I think you've done a fantastic
Yeah.
job, but you hide behind the scenes. But I see the work you're doing.
I made the mistake on the public hearing notice and didn't put the time on there, and he fielded all the calls. So Chris is a saint.
There you go.
so you took the bullet for her, huh?
He always does.
There was a typo that I noticed on something.
Too late.
Get
Too
to
late
next
for typos.
meeting. Next meeting, good try.
What, was it in the resolutions?
Yeah, it was in the, I don't even think it was.
You'll have plenty of time between now and next month to figure that one out.
Share it with Chris when you find it.
I will, I will.
Tell it to me now. Where's the typo?
She's looking for it.
I am.
Her
I
last
was on page
official
143.
Fix
Well,
it.
you,
143.
Oh, 143, you found it?
I got it, yeah.
Okay.
The, the resolution approving a preliminary planned unit development and site plan. I mean, I could just bring it over to you
Page.
later. Page 143.
Okay, we can do the adjournment.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one last thing. For those
Oh, cleanup day.
who want to know, cleanup day? I don't know if you've ever participated in cleanup day. It almost always rains, for one thing. And staff
true, it
needs to
does.
hang around out there in the rain, doing their job. But you can, essentially, you want to get rid of junk,
Yeah.
it's the best place to do it.
Yeah, I've actually
know?
rented a 20-foot box truck.
Yeah.
Both of the last
I mean-
few years. And it's not because I have that much stuff to
Yeah.
get rid of, it's just that that's what I could get a hold of.
But if you look at this, I mean,
Mattresses,
yeah.
actually tires. I don't think we do, but-
Examples listed here, appliances, carpet, construction materials, electronic waste, furniture, lawnmowers, mattresses and box springs, scrap metal, tires. I mean, it's a lot of junk that's hard to get rid of.
Yeah.
And come that day, clean it up. They do a great job. Thankfully, I don't know. That is May 11th, Saturday, May 11th.
So Saturday after next.
And it's 8 to 11. Come early, because there's a line.
Yeah, the last couple of years, I've come through with donuts for city staff, so I
Yeah.
hope
Good
to do that
idea.
again. I hope to do that again this year.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't get the Dunkin'. Oh, well, next time. All right, is there anything else? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Rothy. Second from Commissioner Gadboy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 8:09.